Thank you all so much for coming to our presentation on TWS's Wildlife Biologist Certification Program. My name is Jennifer Murphy. I'm the Certification Manager for the Wildlife Society. I've been with TWS for 6 years now, but I've been a member of the Wildlife Society for over 30 years. I first joined as a student member in the early 90s in college. I received my associate wildlife biologist certification in 2000, and I received my certified wildlife biologist certification in 2007. My background is in wildlife damage management and more specifically in wildlife hazard management at airports. So that means helping airports to prevent the incidence of wildlife aircraft collisions. With me today, I am very happy to have one of our veteran certification review board members, Dave Hokus. I'm going to turn things over to Dave here for a minute so he can introduce himself.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with everybody this afternoon talking about the TWS Wildlife Biologist Certification Program, some of the basics as well as some of the nuances associated with the program. I am currently the leader of the Kansas Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit at Kansas State University. Been here since 2011. Before that, I spent almost 20 years, almost 25 years at Texas Tech, getting my master's and my PhD, as well as working for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, managing migratory game bird program for the southwestern United States, and serving as a faculty member at Texas Tech University. I joined the Wildlife Society in 1984 and became a certified wildlife biologist in 1993 or four, something along those lines. And it's been a very helpful during my career to be certified. It's opened a lot of doors and provided a lot of opportunities for me, throughout the last 30 years. So looking forward to talking to you guys about the certification program.
Awesome. Thanks, Dave. So Dave and I are going to be tag teaming this presentation. You'll be hearing from both of us, and we'll both be available to answer your questions. So what we'd like to do today is give an overview of the certification program. We'll talk about what certification is, what it means. We'll walk you through the different levels of certification. We'll walk you through the coursework that's required category by category. We will touch on some of the more common problems that we see on applications, and we'll answer some frequently asked questions. So my thought is that it will take us about 40 minutes to get through our slides that we have prepared today. And I'll ask that you hold any questions until the end of the presentation. So we should have about 20 minutes at the end for questions. We're keeping the chat open. We're going to try to monitor that as best we can for questions. But if you find that your question has not been answered over the course of the hour, you're always free to reach out to me by phone or email. The last slide of this presentation will show my contact information. So you're always welcome to reach out to me at any time as well. So we'll just go ahead and jump into our slides here. We'll start with what is TWS certification? Well, it constitutes recognition by TWS that a member meets the minimum educational, experience, and ethical standards adopted by the Society for Professional Wildlife Biologists. So TWS has the only wildlife biologist certification in the country. Certification is a professional and independent verification of a wildlife professional's credentials. So you might be asking yourself, well, why should I get certified by TWS? So certification in the US is generally not required for wildlife biologists to work. It's not like, there are some states that do require their wildlife biologists to be certified by TWS, and there may be some independent entities, but in general, It's not required like Canada, for instance, who has provincial governments that require specific certifications for wildlife biologists to be able to work in those provinces. But these are some reasons to get certified. Certification conveys peer recognition of your achievements, enhances public confidence in the wildlife profession. Certification demonstrates personal and professional commitment to protecting and conserving wildlife. It demonstrates you've met the rigorous standards for certification, and it can help you stand out for hiring, promotion, and salary considerations. Certification is awarded at two levels. The associate wildlife biologist is basically the entry level certification, and then certified wildlife biologist is more of the professional level certification. You can find, let's see, you can find the applications on our website at wildlife.org/certification. And I was gonna drop the link in the chat, but something happened to my window and I can't find the chat. So when Dave's talking, I'll go ahead and drop those in case you want to follow along on the application and you don't have it open. So the Associate Wildlife Biologist certification is based on education alone. So you do need to have a bachelor's degree completed before applying, and you need to meet 78 specific semester hours over 10 categories on the application. The Associate Wildlife Biologist certification is valid for 10 years. The Certified Wildlife Biologist certification requires the same educational requirements as the AWB, but then you also must have at least 5 years of professional level work experience. This certification is valid for 5 years, at the end of which you will need to renew your certification through our renewal process. For the AWBs, during that 10 years that the certification is valid, you are able to upgrade to the certified wildlife biologist certification. However, you are not required to be an AWB before coming a CWB. You can apply for CWB straight away if you meet the requirements. Applicants must be current members of TWS to apply for certification. And applications are evaluated by our certification review board. And what the certification review board, or the CRB, is a board of 8 elected TWS members who are also certified. So the process is each of our geographical sections will nominate a member within the section who's a CWB. That nominee needs to be approved by TWS Council. And then that person will serve a 3-year term on the certification review board. At the end of 3 years, they're eligible to renew for another 3 years if they so desire, and if they are nominated again by their section. So many of these members are serving a consecutive 3-year term on the certification review board. So these are very dedicated TWS members. They're very interested in getting you certified. They'll do whatever they can to help you cross that line to certification. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dave, who's going to walk you through the educational requirements for both certifications.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer. One thing I'd like to reiterate from what Jennifer just said is the Certification Review Board, we work to try to get you certified. We work with individuals, and we recognize that not everybody comes from, a traditional natural resource or wildlife type academic background or education. And so we try to be flexible in applying courses among these 10 categories such that you meet the standards to become certified. However, in saying that, there are some certain qualifications or academic requirements that you must meet in order to be considered either an associate wildlife biologist or a certified wildlife biologist. And so I'm just going to kind of broadly go through the 10 categories and discuss a few of the class or some of the classes that maybe um, you might not be aware that would fit into these categories. One thing that I'd like to say up front is the more information you can provide regarding your education and the courses, the easier it is, or the better it is in terms of interpretation of a courses from the review board's perspective. When you fill out the application, you must include the course description that is found in the catalog that is published for your institution. But however, sometimes the course itself, depending on who's teaching it and how long it's been on the books and things like that, may differ slightly or even significantly from the description in that catalog. In that case, having the syllabus in hand helps the certification review board then judge which category that course would best fit. And so having syllabus for courses that might not be quite certain in terms of where they fit in these categories is very, very helpful. And frequently we do ask applicants for a syllabus to verify or to determine what the content of that course was. So we are certifying wildlife biologists. So one of the categories, the primary category, is wildlife management and biology, which has 6 credit hours required in that. One of those courses within this category must be focused on wildlife management and or habitat management, something along those lines. And another course must be completed in herpetology, mammalogy, ornithology. This is one of the few requirements that cannot be substituted with experience. And then other courses kind of depend on what is offered at your institution. So things like wildlife techniques, wildlife population dynamics, habitat management, the basic conservation management classes for each category of wildlife, like waterfowl management and ecology, upland game management, ecology, raptor, non-game, things like that, all kind of fit into this category. There are a couple of courses that may fit in this category depending on the content, one of which is conservation biology. And conservation biology is a class that is usually taught in most institutions, but the content can change dramatically among institutions. And so that it becomes kind of a wild card when we assess that course for which category that it belongs in. And so it's really important that the course description be accurate. And then, or if not, then having additional materials related to conservation biology will allow us to put the course in the correct category. Another one is animal behavior. And animal behavior kind of, again, if it's more theoretical or ethology or something like that, may fit better in the category of zoology. But if it's more of animal behavior in regards to management and conservation actions, then it fit really good in management, wildlife management and biology. Most institutions that grant a degree in wildlife management, wildlife science, things of that nature will have students there will have plenty of courses to fit this category. The next category is ecology. And ecology is a 3-credit, so basically a single class in ecology. However, you cannot substitute experience for ecology. You need to have a class in ecology. And generally, we're looking for, basic ecology, theoretical ecology, relationships, animals in the environment, things of that nature. But other courses can be accepted like forest ecology, landscape ecology, natural resource ecology. There are a lot of different names, but we're looking for a general ecology course that needs to be taken. And it cannot be substituted for since it's only a single class required in that category. Now, I'm going to talk about zoology and botany together for just a brief second. Most institutions, people that are in taking or majoring in natural resources or wildlife management or something along those, take a variety of what we would call introductory biology courses. Especially if they're not labeled zoology or botany or something like that. If it's just general biology or basics of biology or organismic biology or something along those lines, as well as courses in genetics and evolution. In those cases, what we require is that the applicant split those credits equally between botany and zoology. So, for example, if you have a 4 credit class in general biology, 2 credits would fit in zoology, 2 credits would fit in botany. Then in the other classes in zoology, a wide range of classes can be applied there, except for domestic animals or humans. So anatomy classes, additional um, behavior or systematic or taxonomy classes. You can also put in invertebrate classes, and here's where, fish would, ichthyology course or a fish management course or something along those lines would fit into zoology. Then in terms of botany, and this is a category that tends to have sometimes students difficult to achieve these standards. One of the requirements is you must have a greater than 2 credit course in plant ID or taxonomy. Now, this can be substituted for experience, and in that case, you need to have a letter attributing the experience both in time and content from a course instructor if it's a kind of like a workshop or something like that, or your supervisor if it's part of a job. Other things in botany would be like plant ecology, dendrology, um, a variety of different plant physiology classes, things like that. And then physical sciences, these would be courses such as chemistry, physics, soils, geology, no, geography. Let's go with that. And then 2 disciplines must be represented. So you need to have, a chemistry and a physics or a physics and a soils class or something along those lines. Okay, next slide. Statistics is another 3 credit category where we don't allow substitution, and so statistics can be just your basic statistics class, introductory statistics, biometry, or it can be any other course that would generally provide a basic information or basic education related to statistics, which is slightly different than quantitative sciences, which is a 6 credit class or 6 credit category, excuse me, that this is where your math classes, your algebra, your trigonometry, your advanced modeling classes, maybe your population demography class if there's a lot of quantitative aspects to it. One thing that we do allow in here is an advanced GIS class. So introductory GIS classes will not count if you're just learning how to build maps or bring layers into a GIS system of some sort. But if you're using those layers or that spatial information to build models or develop predictive maps or something along those lines, then we would allow that course to count in quantitative sciences. Now, humanities and social sciences, I'm not going to talk about that very much because it's very unlikely that you'll be short in terms of the credit hours for this category, as most universities, their general education requirements will fill that. So basically any sort of general education requirements for humanities, social sciences, from sociology to psychology to history, a lot of different things will fit into that category. Communications is a class or is a category that people sometimes have trouble meeting the standard of 12 semester credit hours. But this is where your speech classes, your composition classes all fit in here. Literature classes are just, kind of reading and discussing probably doesn't fit in there. Presentation, learning professional skills, things like that nature will fit into communication classes. If you are writing a thesis as part of a master's program or a dissertation as part of a PhD program, you can, if you successfully complete a thesis or a dissertation, it can count for 3 credit hours within this category. And finally, the last category is policy, administration, and law. It's a kind of a broad category because a lot of departments, a lot of universities have a wide variety of opportunities to take classes that would fit into this category. But environmental policy, wildlife law, uh, you know, scientific ethics, uh, policy management, policy development, things of that nature would all fit into this category. And it's sometimes usually the hardest one for a lot of uh, applicants to meet. So just be aware of that when you plan out your curriculum during the time that you're in school. So, as I mentioned, you can substitute some experience for coursework. Um, we have a maximum of 9 credit hours that can be substituted um, across the entire application, but only 3 credit hours per category can be substituted, and you can substitute for ecology or statistics. And if you want to substitute experience or other kinds of training for a designated course, you need a letter of support from the instructor, if it's a workshop or something like that, or your supervisor, to corroborate any kind of experience that you have. And there are some requirements in terms of experience that you need to meet relative to hours spent in the field or in the workshop or something along those lines, and we'll talk about that later. So once you've kind of met the requirements from the academic perspective, hopefully you're interested in then meeting the requirements to be a certified wildlife biologist. Now, one thing I'd like to make really, really clear is the Certification Review Board recognizes that there are a lot of career opportunities within the wildlife and natural resource field. And what we are certifying as part of the Wildlife Society is what we call certified wildlife biologist. And that certified wildlife biologist, you must document 5 years of professional experience gained within 10 years prior to that application. So once you say, for example, if you are granted associate wildlife biologist designation, and that designation is good for 10 years. So within that 10-year period, you need to gain 5 years of professional experience. So what is professional experience? That's always a question that we tend to get. In a manual that goes with the certification review certification process, there is some guidance in terms of what is professional activities, but essentially professional activities means that you are the decision maker. You are the person that is developing some sort of activity, task, or solution. You are implementing it. You are responsible for it. You write up the reports, you make the presentations, so on and so forth. This differs from technician experience, where individuals are just given a task and then they complete it, and then somebody else takes that information and does something with it. And so again, we recognize that there's a wide range of experiences associated with wildlife biology. And so we carefully look at each one of those experiences and determine, from our best judgment, whether or not they meet the standard required by the Wildlife Society to be considered professional wildlife experience. Next. Okay, for just a few things to kind of be aware of to kind of help your application processing and consideration go smoothly. Provide official transcripts, not unofficial transcripts. The only way that a course can count in a category is if the grade on that course is C minus or better. Every category on the application, so all 10 categories, must have at least one university or college course. Uh, we do not require references for people that are applying for associate wildlife biologists, but we will require references for people that are applying for certified wildlife biologists. And that's all kind of that the application contains a great deal of information that guides you through this. And a couple other notes for those people that got dual credits in high school, or those as long as they are accepted by the university to substitute for some of the classes, they also count. And if you have AP or IP credits, the committee will consider those under certain circumstances, and those are kind of a individual consideration. One applicant at a time. Next.
I just wanted to chime in real quick that we do accept both official and unofficial transcripts, so they do not necessarily need to be official.
Okay. And so if you're applying for a certified wildlife biologist, you must provide three references who are wildlife professionals, hopefully some people that are familiar with what you're doing and familiar enough with your activities that they can comment upon your professionalism and adherence to the TWS ethics standards and things of that nature. So the references should know your experience in the Wildlife Society, and one reference should be a certified wildlife biologist. And also another reference must be from outside of your direct organization. So it could be, if you're working for an agency or something like that, it could be a university, one of your former professors or something along those lines. Okay.
Oh, I can take this one. Uh, AWB extension, what this refers to is the Associate Wildlife Biologist certification that expires in 10 years. If you're getting close to your 5 years of professional level experience, but you're not quite there, you're not ready to upgrade to CWB, you are able to complete a AWB extension application, which would then extend your AWB certificate for another 3 years. So in order to do that, you must have at least 24 months of professional level experience under your belt before applying for this. I'll touch very briefly on CWB renewal. As we said, this certification must be renewed once every 5 years, and you need to acquire at least 80 hours of continuing education units, or CEUs as we call them, during that 5 years. So we find that most people don't have any problem acquiring 80 hours over a 5 year period. And these are some examples of activities that would count on that renewal application. Conference attendance. For example, the TWS annual conference is typically pre-approved for 40 CEUs. And so if you attend one TWS conference, you're already halfway to your 80 CEUs in that 5 year period. Participation in organized activities, so that's things like meetings, workshops, webinars. Leading organized activities also counts on the renewal application. So if you lead any of those workshops or webinars, you can claim credits. Mentorship activities, if you're mentoring a junior colleague or a student. Publications, you can receive credit if you've published a paper or a book. Self-directed learning is things like reading literature, watching audiovisual materials. And then professional service, which is things like holding office or serving on a committee or a task force in an organization that is related to the profession. I do want to briefly touch on QAWB. You may have seen this around a bit. So in TWS took over the vetting of qualified airport wildlife biologists in 2023. This is sort of on behalf of the Federal Aviation Administration or FAA. They have some very specific requirements that they spell out in their guidance that needs to be met, and we vet those that experience in those trainings. So uh, to become a QAWB with the Wildlife Society, you first must be approved as a certified wildlife biologist. So the QAWB is a designation that can be added on to your CWB um, certification. You must meet all of the requirements that are spelled out in the advisory circular that's listed here. You must have completed a wildlife hazard management at airports training, and you must have completed a wildlife hazard assessment under a QAWB mentor. So as you can see, this is a very niche field. This happens to be the field that I worked in. If you've got questions about this, please feel free to reach out to me by phone or email, and I'd be happy to talk to you more about the QAWB designation. We wanted to mention some of the common issues with applications. Dave had touched on a few of them already. If you've been out of school for quite a while and don't think you can get your transcripts, typically all schools will keep their transcripts indefinitely. So even if a school has closed, they've either transferred your transcripts to another institution or used a third-party vendor to digitally archive those. So you will be able to get copies of your transcripts. They may be official or unofficial, but regardless, they need to contain these three things: your name, the name of the institution, and your degree conferral date. So those all must appear on your transcripts. Otherwise, we'll come back to you and we'll ask you to attain those transcripts. Another issue, transferred courses do not indicate grades received. So if you if you transferred into a new school and your courses from your old school appear on your current transcript, but only with a CR or a credit was indicated there and not your actual grade, you will need to go back and get that transcript from the prior university and submit that as well. So we need to see every course that is on your application as well as the grade received needs to appear on your transcript. Not including all relevant courses on the application. So if a category requires, say, 6 or 9 credits, and you have 12 credits in that particular category, be sure to just list all 12 credits. Oftentimes, the board will shift coursework around to make things fit. If you've got a deficiency that you didn't know about in another area, you want to make sure that you have enough credits in all of the categories. So just go ahead and list those relevant courses in the appropriate category. Double listing courses. So a course can be listed in up to two categories, but the credits must be split. So for example, if you took an ornithology class, a 4-credit ornithology class, you can list it in the wildlife management and biology category and the zoology category, but you must split the credits. So you can split it either 2 and 2 or 3 and 1, depending on where you need the credits most. But you cannot list a 4-credit ornithology class in the wildlife category and then 4 credits in zoology. You need to split the credits if you're going to list the course more than one time. Um, Dave touched on some of the areas of the application that we often see applicants have trouble with, primarily in the wildlife management and biology category, botany, and policy administration and law. as Dave stated, we are certifying wildlife biologists, and we need to see the credits in that category for wildlife management and the herpetology, mammalogy, or ornithology requirement. So if you're missing any of that, you're going to want to take an online course to fulfill that. Feel free to reach out if you've got questions about any of this. But same with botany, that 2 credit plant taxonomy or identification course can trip up a lot of applicants. You can fulfill that with a workshop or work experience as well if you don't have the coursework. And then be sure to have your policy, administration, and law, excuse me, courses, your 6 credits on your application. And then finally, Dave touched on this as well, the counting wildlife technician work towards professional experience. So you want to be sure for CWB applicants only that the work experience that you are listing is professional in nature. And I am going to drop into the chat the policies and procedures manual that we use. Um, On page 31 of this manual, there's a table that differentiates between technical level and professional level work. And so before you apply for the CWB, you want to be sure that you have 5 years of professional level work experience. Excuse me. So you want to have developed and managed and overseen projects, analyze data, write final reports, represent your agency or organization professionally. These are things that are considered professional level per the application. Speaking of the manual that I just dropped in the chat, this is a very comprehensive manual. It's not something you'll probably want to read in its entirety. It provides an overview of the certification program and its history. Excuse me. Um, it does provide information on coursework and experience requirements that you might be interested in. But there is a lot of information in there that is not going to be applicable to you. Things about electing CRB members, handling appeals, and that sort of thing. But check out the manual if you've got questions as you're going along, as far as if a course fits in a particular category, you might be able to find some answers in there. I'm going to let Dave take this over while I have my coughing fit here.
All right. So again, I'd like to reiterate that, we are from the Certification Review Board perspective, we're trying, we want to work with individuals to make sure that they have the greatest likelihood of becoming certified with the education and experience that they have. But there are a lot of questions and a lot of nuances, again, to the certification process. And so some of the questions that we get are, do we, what do I do if I'm not sure that a class will count within a specific category? Well, there's a couple things. First off, go and look in the manual, which has kind of a list of classes that would count in each category. Another route would be to contact other people, other members, other people that are gone through this process that graduated from your institution, and ask them where they put that class and where that class was counted when their application was reviewed. The third thing would be to contact Jennifer or your section representative and ask them. And the fourth thing to do would be to put the class in the category that you think it best fits, but provide the information, sufficient information on the content of the course, maybe even just up to a syllabus, so that the members of the review board can put it in its proper category. Because as Jennifer mentioned, we do move classes around a lot to make sure that people meet the standards in each category. Another question is, do you need to be an AWB prior to applying for CWB? The answer is no, but I highly recommend it. Um, it seems to go a lot smoother if you meet the AWB requirements, and then when you apply for CWB, you just fill out the form called the CWB upgrade form. So the AWB is one step, and so um, then the experience is the next step. When you apply directly for CWB, there have been occasions where people have had the experience necessary or met the experience standard, but they didn't meet the education standard. And so if you kind of go through the process and get that education standard met through the AWB initially, then it makes the whole process go a lot smoother. But you don't have to be an AWB before you become a CWB. Can I count work I did in school as an undergraduate towards the 5 years of professional experience? Answer is no. That 5 year time frame starts after you've received your degree. And can I count my graduate research project as professional experience? Now, there are some nuances to that, but in general, yes. If you completed a master's degree with a thesis, that counts as 1 year of professional experience. If you completed a dissertation and a PhD that was related to wildlife, that counts as 2 years of professional experience. A non-thesis graduate work will partially count depending on what it is, and we take those on an individual by individual case basis. But yes, so if you go through and get a master's degree and a PhD degree and write a thesis and a dissertation, you've already got 3 years in for your professional experience. Do I have to use my institution's course catalog description for the classes listed on the application? If you do not, well, yes. On the application, yes. If the course that you took differs from what the description is in the course catalog, then you need to provide a syllabus that indicates what was actually what the was actually the class consisted of. But yes, the only thing that we have to go by on the certification review board is what the course description is in these course catalogs.
All right, I'll take this one. So let's talk about the logistics of how to apply. So you'll want to download the fillable PDF that I on our website or that I dropped in the chat. Once that's completed and saved, you want to log into the TWS member portal, and then you'll upload your application, transcripts, and any supporting materials that you have. Once your application is complete, you'll receive a notification to pay the application fee. And then once your payment has been processed, your application gets put in line to be evaluated by the certification review board and allow about 4 to 6 months to hear a decision. Right now, we're about 4 to 5 months, and we've got a couple of things in the works to try and address this long wait time. These are the application fees. I won't read through it all, but I do want to mention that if you apply for certification within 6 months of graduating, you receive the discounted rate of $95. Also, if you're a graduate student currently enrolled, you can also qualify for this reduced rate. So that is all we have for slides. I'm going to leave my contact information up there for a minute so you can jot that down. And we're going to open it up to questions. We've had a few in the chat, but that we'll take a look at here. But feel free to turn on your mic and ask any questions you have on what we've shared here, or if you've got something else in mind that you'd like to ask about. Dave, there's a question in the chat about someone that took wildlife chemical immobilization 3 different times with 3 different entities, would you give credit for all 3 of those or no?
Well, I was about to hit enter on that response, but no. The only way that I would count it more than once is if the content differed. So, for example, if the chemical immobilization initially was for you know, wolves and bears, and then the next one was for ungulates or something like that, then perhaps that could count separately. But if it's just the general like safe capture course, that it's the same course 3 times, then um, I would personally only count it once.
Thanks, Dave.
Hello, I have a quick question.
Sure.
So say you have all of the credits that are required for the certification done. Are you allowed to go into each category and overfill just in case there are some credits that you're worried won't take? Is there any way, like say there's a category that wanted 11 credits, could I fill it up with all credits that I think could count, and then somebody who's there to verify it could pick and choose to make sure that the credits fulfill?
Definitely. Yeah, you want to add all of the coursework that's applicable to each category for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, it's Joe Brusso. I have a question about, in the beginning, you had said that course descriptions are needed for all the courses. Did I hear that correctly, or is it just for certain circumstances?
There,
It's
oh, go ahead, Dave.
no, yes, they're needed for any course that you list. There has to be some sort of course description that describes the content of that course.
I
Okay,
believe
is
they,
that course description from the college's course catalog, or do
Yep,
we?
yep.
Okay, so a follow-up question is, if I were to apply, I did my undergrad, I graduated in 86. Right. So unless they have their catalogs archived, I don't know how I would come up with a course description for that.
so for in our manual, it does say that course descriptions can be in your own words. We prefer that they're from the course catalog or the syllabus. It can be in your own words. You also might find it helpful to find that same course if it's still taught at your university, even though it, may have changed a little bit. But to the best of your recollection, you can use your own words, although it's not preferred. We understand that sometimes that is the case.
Okay, thank you.
Someone had their hand up.
Yeah. Oh, I did. Yeah. So my master's degree is actually in public health as opposed to wildlife. And the program that I went to actually had a capstone instead of a thesis. Would that be something that would be applicable?
No, a master's degree would only count for professional experience if it's related to the wildlife profession.
Okay, but I meant like the capstone course itself for like quantitative or anything
I
like
see.
that.
It could if you had to produce a report or a paper or a presentation as part of that capstone
Yep.
class,
Yep.
we would likely consider it in the communications
Okay.
category.
Okay. All right. And then just a follow up. How do how do you rank papers, publications for different categories as far as the credits or how does that work?
Typically, those you might be able to substitute 3 credits in this communications category for a paper that was published, but otherwise, there really isn't a place on the applications that it would fit for the renewal applications. You can certainly
Oh,
use
okay.
that sort of thing.
Okay. Yep.
Travis, did you already ask your question? Your hand is up.
Sorry.
Uh,
I was turning my camera on. Hi, everyone. So I've got a question about if your technical job title on the books is environmental science technician, but your position has developed into like multiple roles, including instructing wildlife management techniques, field herpetology course, providing technical reports to state and federal agencies under research projects, and also being the PI on undergraduate research projects. How would you go about counting that towards professional experience?
So yeah, your job title is less important than the content of your job duties. So you'll just want to list that out in the work experience portion of the application. Write your current job title, but be sure to be detailed in the job description. Sometimes we see, one phrase or one sentence, and it just doesn't give a good picture of what the work duties are. So you want to just be sure to explain exactly what your work duties are and give the breakdown of percentages of time spent on each one.
When I looked at the form before, there was like a breakdown of percentages, so that really helps. And then I had another question for a course, natural resource management, that dives into human dimensions, and if that would count towards um, environmental policy and law, even though in that it says resource management does not count. I guess it's based off descriptions. If you have the description or syllabus.
Yeah, you'll want to include the syllabus, but typically human dimensions courses will count in the policy administration and law category.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Chuck.
Yeah, so like the gentleman that just spoke a little while ago, some of my coursework, in fact, most of it was probably done back in the 90s. And remembering, or at least trying to go back and think about it, was something like a population dynamics course, could that count under ecology?
Population dynamics, no. Population ecology, yes. And,
Okay.
the way I look at, I mean, it depends on the content, but the way most, a population dynamics class would be, estimating vital rates and estimating abundances and things like that, which would fit more under wildlife management and biology, or even quantitative if necessary
Gotcha.
there.
Okay.
But
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
But
Great.
if
Thanks.
it's a theoretical population biology class or population ecology class,
Hmm.
where you're determining the response of populations to environmental conditions or something like that, then we have counted those in ecology.
And would something like, um, uh, where would a basic GI or an intro GIS class fall? Would there be anywhere in the credit requirements that could be inserted?
Excuse me, a GIS class?
Yeah.
If it's a basic GIS class, then we don't usually count those.
Okay.
But if it's an advanced GIS class, then usually it goes under in the quantitative category.
Okay.
Before we go to Nina, I'm going to answer Mary's question about AP courses. So, oh wait, did you answer that already, Dave?
No, I was typing, but go ahead.
Um, so we do require a 4 or better for AP courses to be accepted. However, if your college or university accepts that course for credit, we will as well. So I think some schools will accept a three on an AP course. If you do need to provide proof of taking an AP course, the letter from the board needs to state that you received at least a 4. Dave, is that your understanding as well?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to Nina.
Okay, I just had one simple question, because I've received different answers from different people that I've asked around, but regarding getting the associate certification, as someone who's graduating to get their bachelor's in May of this year, do I need to wait until graduation to have the degree with me to apply?
Yes, so you need to have completed your degree and you need to have that transcript with your degree conferral date on it before you submit any.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Sure. Anyone else? So I'm looking at Jack's comment or question to elaborate on the distinction between professional versus technician level work. So I'll point you all to that page 31 in the Policies and Procedures Manual that does differentiate between the two. So typically, technician level work is monitoring wildlife, collecting data entry, following instructions of a wildlife biologist that's overseeing a project. Whereas the professional level work is seen as developing and overseeing a project, analyzing the data that's collected, providing final reports, things like that. So there is a differentiation, and hopefully it's explained in the certification manual that we dropped in the link in the chat.
And there's a question in the chat on whether or not undergraduate research courses that have a formal research paper qualify for credit hours, and the answer is yes. And it kind of depends on what you did, but it can sometimes count towards experience substitution, depending on what it is. But more than likely, if you produce a paper or a report or some sort of product at the end, poster, something along those lines, then we would count that in the communications category.
Thanks, Dave. Before we go to Chuck, I do want to address a couple of comments in the chat from Rue and Travis. So Rue asked about, if they're deficient in an area, are there online universities that you recommend, or online wildlife management courses accepted? So yes, online courses are accepted for people that are looking for the herpetology, mammalogy, ornithology requirement, which is one that folks frequently ask for. The ones I know off the top of my head that have those are American Public University has an online course, as well as Oregon State University. So Travis had dropped the link in for Center for Wildlife Studies, and while they have some fantastic courses over there, the problem with that is those are not from an accredited university, and so some of their coursework may be able to count as a coursework substitution. The courses are not quite the length of a full college course, and they're not from an accredited institution, but we can view it as a professional workshop, and we can potentially credit a substitution on your application. And that's a case-by-case thing. And so if you plan on taking any courses at Center for Wildlife Studies and want to ask about how it can fit on the application, please feel free to reach out to us before you do that. Chuck, go ahead.
Yeah, for the recommendations, I work with a lot of veterinarians, and although they're not, I mean, some of them are not strictly speaking wildlife professionals, but some of them are public health veterinarians who deal with things like West Nile virus or Eastern equine encephalitis virus. Would they be acceptable for a recommendation?
Yep. Yeah, as long as you do have, or hopefully you can find a certified wildlife biologist to help provide a recommendation for you as well. But yes, anybody that, in that kind of realm, that's wildlife related,
Yep.
whether it's West Nile or CWD or any of, I work with a lot of those vets as well. So yes.
All right, we are at the 3 o'clock mark. I'm willing to stay on for a few minutes if there are folks that want to stay and ask some questions. Otherwise, like I said, feel free to email me at certification@wildlife.org. if you've got specific questions. Is there anything else anyone wants to ask before we sign off? Would a wetland scientist count for a reference, Dave?
Yep. Yes, it will.
Thank you, Travis, for putting our link in for the online courses on our website. I failed to mention that at wildlife.org/online-courses. Travis, did you have something else? Go TWS.
Just a thumbs up. Thank you.
Thanks, Travis. Yes, thanks, Travis. All right, so this has been recorded. We'll go ahead and we'll send this around to everybody that was in attendance. And we thank you for being here. Feel free to reach out with questions in the future. Have a good day, everyone.